Hello and welcome to this edition of Grammar Tuesday, the series where I go through some of the information from Mr. Bruff's Guide to Grammar, which you can pick up through following the links in the description. Before we go any further, just a reminder that if you have any interest whatsoever in grammar, do follow Mrs. Spag on Twitter. She is tweeting regularly some really interesting bits and bobs on grammar. So today I'm going to talk to you about active and passive sentences, and as always what I'm going to do is explain what they are, give you some examples, and then look at how they might be important when it comes to completing exams. And what we're looking at really is, much like this picture, is the foundations of writing. If you want to be able to build really good written work, if you want to be able to structure your writing in a sophisticated way, you've got to get the basics, the foundations sorted before you can go any further than that. So let's just recap the basics. Have a look at this sentence, the man smiled. In this sentence, the verb, the doing word, is smiled. Okay, so every sentence has to have a verb in it to be a sentence and a subject, which is the thing doing the verb, and it has to make sense on its own. So the man smiled is a very simple subject. Now in active sentences, the subject always does the verb. Okay, so the man smiled is an active sentence because the subject, the man, is doing the verb, smiling. So here we have some other active sentences. The dog chased the ball, the child ate the sweets, she weeded the garden, I broke my pen, they walked to the cinema. And you can see that the subject, dog, child, she, I, and they are doing the verbs, chased, ate, weeded, broke, and walked. So that's quite simple. That's what active sentences are. Why do I need to know about active sentences? Well, active sentences are dynamic. They speak of action. They make you sound firm, decisive, and strong. There's no messing around with this sentence type. So let's have a look at them in action. The picture of Dorian Gray that you can see on the screen here is by Oscar Wilde, nothing to do with 50 Shades of Grey. It's an interesting story about a young guy called Dorian Gray who admires a full-length oil painting of himself, and he says that he would prefer the picture to age instead of him and would sell his soul to make this happen, and his wish is granted. Now in the following extract he describes his love for Sybil Vane, a young actress who's playing the part of Juliet in a theatre. And the active sentences in this extract add passion and strength to his feelings. She is all the great heroines of the world in one. She is more than an individual. You laugh, but I tell you she has genius. I love her, and I must make her love me. You, who know all the secrets of life, tell me how to charm Sybil Vane to love me. I want to make Romeo jealous. I want the dead lovers of the world to hear our laughter and grow sad. I want a breath of our passion to stir their dust into consciousness, to wake their ashes into pain. My God, Harry, how I worship her. He was walking up and down the room as he spoke, hectic spots of red burning on his cheeks. He was terribly excited. So what we can see there is active sentence after active sentence after active sentence, which gives this passion and strength to the feelings. Well, that's quite obvious then, I think, to work out what passive sentences are. But before we do that, we need to think of the bits that we didn't address in the previous sentences. The dog chased the ball. The dog is the subject. The verb is chased. We have something called the object. And the object is the thing that is having the verb done to it, the thing that is the recipient of the verb. So what is being chased? In this case, the ball. Therefore, the ball is the object. So she ate pasta, she is the subject, ate is the verb, pasta is the object, it's the thing having the eating done to it. Now, passive sentences focus on the object. So in the sentence, the cat chased the mouse, that is an active sentence, the subject is the cat, chased is the verb, the mouse is the object. But we can rearrange the sentence to make it passive, which is to start with the object and to say the mouse was chased by the cat. Not too complex, but it gets quite complex as we move on. So when do we use passive sentences? Well, with passive sentences first, you have to alter the verb and add the word by if you choose to keep the subject. So the subject is actually so unimportant you don't even need it at all. You could just write the mouse was chased. So when do we use passive sentences? Well, the main use of a passive sentence is when the subject is unimportant or we don't know who the subject is. So I'm going to show you a little extract from Bram Stoker's Dracula, classic Gothic story, and we'll have a look at this, this passive sentence here. The funeral was arranged for the next succeeding day. Well, you know, in that sentence, it's unimportant to know who arranged the funeral. It's not a key part of the story, is it, to say, you know, one of the lawyers arranged the funeral for the next day. It's just, an important bit is to know that the funeral was arranged. So in that sense, there's an unimportant, or perhaps even an unknown subject. Another time, though, that we'll use passive sentences is to emphasize the object. And there's a well-known story that in 1897, the American author Mark Twain, you can see him on the picture as he's doing Movember, he was in London and he heard that his obituary, a notice of his death, had actually been published. And he sent a telegram to America which said, "The reports of my death are greatly exaggerated." So in this passive sentence, it doesn't really matter who wrote the reports of his death. That's not the kind of pun he's got here. He's just having a bit of a play on the fact that he's not dead. So a passive sentence seems to be more important here because it's emphasizing the object, which is the fact that there have been reports of his death. So you use a passive sentence when you want to emphasize the object, but also we can use passive sentences when we want to be deliberately vague. So we see this a lot in politics. Politicians, the slippery eels that they are, they will use passive sentences when they want to be deliberately vague about a subject. For example, imagine that a politician's done something so bad it's in the news. You don't want to admit you've made the mistake, so you could say something like, "Mistakes were made." So those are 3 times that we use passive sentences. Now, you can analyze in a text the use of active and passive. You could also, if you're being really clever, when you're doing some writing, if it's creative writing for your coursework or controlled assessment, for example, you could deliberately vary the use of active and passive sentences as you've seen here. Now, if you like what you've seen in this video, it's all part of my Mr. Bruff's Guide to Grammar, and if you follow the link in the description, you can download a free sample chapter. Now, what we've got here on the screen is chapter 3 of the book, which is on nouns. It ties in with last week's video, and what you'll see is that this ebook, which is a fantastic over 200 pages, goes through nouns, goes through the rules for nouns here, and then it's got really, really good tests so you can fill in the tables. There are questions to test yourself, and of course then there are the answers. Fascinating facts, all the kind of different details on the different type of nouns. This is just the chapter on nouns, but it really is an impressive textbook. You can pick up a copy for just £2.99 by following the link in the description, so please do that. Follow Mrs. Spag on Twitter. Download this free sample to have a look through the sample of the grammar guide, and subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, etc, etc. Remember, every Tuesday on this channel, youtube.com/Mr. Bruff, will be a grammar video, and I hope you found it useful.